The many metals of Runescape. Our characters are able to completely master all of these metals, from the lowly bronze to the mid-level rune. Bronze, iron, and steel exist in real life, and in the game are roughly based off their real-life counterparts. Mithril, adamant, and runite are made from mineable ores found throughout the game world, and it has even been confirmed that dragon is made from an ore that just simply is not found on Gielinor. But what about the two low-level metals of black and white? What are they, and why can't we smith them? I am the KinshraSlave, and this is Theory Scape. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Just what are the black and white metals? From a gameplay perspective, the white and black metals are a tier of low-level weapons and armor between steel and mithril. They are level 10 on Old School and level 25 on Runescape 3. The two sets are identical piece for piece, save for the small prayer bonus offered by white equipment. So in the world, what are they? Is there some secret mine filled with black and white ore? Well, no. Thankfully, we get a lot of information on these metals from an August 5th, 2009 post back from the hedge. According to Thurgo, that's the dwarf NPC who sells the smithing cape, quote, "White and black metals are actually just colored forms of steel, created by differing forging techniques, but resulting in metals of equivalent strength." End quote. Thurgo's words are backed up by the fact that both armors are consistently referred to as steel in the RuneScape novel Betrayal at Falador, which heavily features both the Kinshra and the White Knights. In-game, the two armors even have the exact same weight as their steel counterparts. Another clue as to what exactly the black and white metals are comprised of comes from Ava's devices. More specifically, Ava's Alerter and Ava's Accumulator. In reference to the metal's ability to work with Ava's devices, Thurgo goes on to say that, quote, "There must be something in the process of black and white steel coloration that removes or drastically reduces the steel's magnetic properties." End quote. However, this only seems to be the case with white armor. I'll get to that in a moment. Black metal does appear to be magnetic, where white does not. Ava's device does in fact pick up black bolts. However, in that same letter, Thurgo claims that, quote, "Ava tells me that while her device contains a magnet, it does not attract objects through magnetism alone. The device's magical components create another kind of field, attracting materials that think they are magnetic." End quote. And this would be the case, as the device can retrieve many non-magnetic ammunitions, such as bronze bolts, yet body armors made from these same non-magnetic materials, such as the bronze plate body, do not interfere with the functionality of the device. Through in-game testing, I found with very good consistency that black armor does interfere with Ava's Accumulator, and white does not. This is also true of Elite Black Armor, which the device does not work with, and the Initiate and Proselyte Armor, which the device does work with. So clearly, something in the process of making white armor removes most of, or all, of the magnetic properties steel would normally have. Given the consistency with the higher-leveled black and white armors, I would say this is a pretty deliberate choice by Jagex. Perhaps whatever gives the armor its prayer bonus also reduces its magnetic properties. There is also some evidence to suggest that proselyte armor is made from mithril. It has the exact same stats and weight piece for piece. This seems very deliberate, as mithril armor is slightly lighter than steel armor, and steel armor weighs the exact same as black and white armor, which we know is just colored steel. So it stands to reason that this armor weighing exactly the same as mithril could mean they are in fact at least partially the same material. If so, this supports the idea that whatever gives the armor its prayer bonus also removes its magnetic properties, as evidenced by the fact that a mithril plate body does interfere with Ava's device, and the proselyte body does not. It should also be noted that prior to the armor graphical rework, every one of these plate bodies had the same size and shape. meaning that differences in weight must be caused by the metals being of different densities. Likewise, being the same weight is very strong evidence that two metals are of the same density and therefore are very likely the same material. So, one question remains. If black and white armors are just steel, and everything from the weight of the metals to the narration of the books, and even the smithing master himself points to the conclusion that they are, why can't the player smith these items? In the case of white equipment, it would seem the process of forging these items is a strictly guarded secret of the White Knights. Only they and the player can use these items. Even the player has to first join the Knights to equip the armor by completing the recruitment drive and wanted quests. No one, and I mean no one else in Gielinor, seems to have this armor. Not even the Falador guards. Only the White Knights have them. No monster in Runescape drops these items, which would suggest even more that they are very keen about protecting the secret of producing this armor and will actively retrieve them from any fallen knights. Black armor, on the other hand, seems to be a less widely protected secret. Many creatures throughout Gielinor drop black equipment, suggesting that perhaps the Kinshra are unable or simply don't care enough to retrieve their weapons. If you wear any piece of the heraldic black armor, the guard will not let you into the Black Knight's fortress, even though your armor is technically black, suggesting that other groups besides the Kinshra are able to smith black armor. My personal hypothesis would be that the Kinshra perhaps sold this secret to at least 5 wealthy families. This may also help to explain why black weapons are scattered all throughout Gielinor, even in places that are well beyond the Kinshra's influence. Elite black armor, on the other hand, only comes from the elite Black Knights, and is therefore 100% unique to the Kinshra. It makes sense that they would protect the knowledge of how to smith their best armor. There is one final point I'd like to make as to why the player cannot smith these armors. Consider the base materials. Why would an army, particularly one in direct rivalry with another army, primarily use steel in a world that has a plethora of better, stronger materials that produce superior weapons and armor? The answer is simple: availability. To you, the player, upgrading from steel to mithril to adamant and beyond is trivial, but to the average citizen of Gielinor, obtaining these resources is far outside their ability. In the game's lore, runite is extremely rare, and it is even hinted at that no human smith besides the player can work with it. In the novel Betrayal at Falador, Doric even states that it is beyond the ability of any human blacksmith. This may be a hyperbole, but I wouldn't be so sure. In the book, Kara has an adamant longsword. While observing the sword, the book refers to it as one of the strongest and rarest of all metals, and beyond the craft of any smith in Falador. It is later revealed that it was in fact a dwarf who crafted the sword. My answer as to why the player cannot smith black or white equipment is this: because the player's sheer scope of ability is so much more than any NPC, the player doesn't really need to learn it. The black and white improvements to steel were born out of a necessity to maximize the potential of the materials readily available and available on the scale needed to outfit an entire army. The player, rather than taking the time and exclusive training to learn the techniques needed to make these armors, simply moves on to mithril, then adamant, and finally rune. So let's wrap all this up. Black and white armors are in fact modified steel. White is somehow not magnetic even though black is. Proselyte might be steel. The secrets of how to make these armors are probably closely guarded. And lastly, the player simply has no need to learn because you, the player, are not bound by the canonical limitations of the NPCs. That's all for this video, and if you like it, then you may like my previous video where I calculate how strong a player with 99 strength is. I am the KinshraSlave, and until next time, this is Theory Scape.